Continuing our journey through the 18th chapter. Oh, you read my mind. And does anyone know what verse we're on?
We're on verse 55.
Verse 55 in the 18th chapter. Deepa, can you help us out, please?
Yes. Bhaktya mamabhijanati yavanyaschasmi satatvatah tato mam tatvato gyatva vishate tadantaram. By devotion he knows me in essence, what and who I am. Then having known me in my essence, he forthwith enters into the Supreme.
So again, the essence of the 18th chapter, it's a recapitulation of all the major ideas that we've covered throughout the text. So we spent quite a bit of time in karma yoga. Then we briefly went through a review of chapter 6, yoga of meditation. And now he's addressing bhakti yoga. So again, to review, in the tradition, we have 4 great paths. Karma yoga, the path of action. Bhakti yoga, the path of devotion. Raja yoga, the path of psychic development. And jnana yoga, the path of wisdom. Now, many people practice an integral yoga. They combine a few of the pieces of it. They all lead to the same place. But each of these 4 great paths are designed for people of different temperaments. So karma yoga are for people who are action-oriented. They tend to interact with the world through activity, through the body itself. It's a way to act in the world to get us out of action. Raja yoga is actually attractive to people who want power or want experiences, things like that. That's only part of it, goes to the highest. Bhakti yoga is for people who interact with the world through their feelings, through the heart. It is the path of love. Now, those of us who come from a Western tradition, the text that comes closest to understanding this is the Cloud of Unknowing. Very, very old book written, I think, might correct me if I'm wrong here, it's 14th century.
I don't know for sure. It may be even a little older.
But it's written by an anonymous monk in England. It's written in Middle English, the language of Chaucer. And we have some modern translations. My favorite is by William Johnston, who was a Catholic priest who actually was posted in Kyoto in Japan for many, many years. One of the first to be exposed to Zen Buddhism, kind of the generation of Thomas Merton back in the 60s. Anyway, so the idea in the cloud is you place a cloud of forgetting between you and the world. And you place a cloud of unknowing between you and God. So at one level we talk about, well, God is truth, God is love, God is light, God is all powerful, etc. And then we say, but God is beyond truth. God is not truth. God is beyond light. God is not light. God is beyond power. God is not power, etc. The idea of it's unknowable. So we want to get beyond our concepts. And then this is so beautiful. We endeavor to pierce the cloud of unknowing with the dart or the arrow of our love. Now, he's in Japan and he's taking a Zen sesshin. That's a retreat. And so he's meditating. And one of the things they have, I think it's called Dokusan, where you have an interview with the meditation teacher. So we go to the meditation teacher. Meditation teacher says, how's your meditation going? And Johnston says, well, it really hurts my legs and my back hurts. And so the Roshi says, sit in a chair. Busting our romantic ideas what it is to be a meditator. But how's your meditation going? So he explains the practice that's put forward in the cloud of unknowing. He's an expert on it. Done this very famous translation. And the Roshi says, good. Keep at it. Pretty soon your God will disappear. Johnson is a little bit taken aback. You argue with the Roshi? And he says, well, I thought I would disappear. And the Roshi says, yes, it's the same thing. So, listen very carefully. A personal God is as real as your ego. A personal God is as real as a world of name and form. That person is the greatest of fools who holds on to a personal sense of self. I'm Jim, I am this body, and I have this problem, and I have that problem, and denies the reality of a personal God, because then you're left with nothing but your own unaided willpower. I think most of us have come to see that is very powerful. So Bhakti Yoga says, love God, worship the Lord. Those of us who are familiar with the Jewish tradition, well, even in the Christian tradition, a man comes to Jesus and says, Master, what is the greatest of the commandments? And the answer is, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and soul and mind and strength. Most important. So we love God and we give up all the stuff of the individual ego. God's my employer. God's my spouse. God is everything. Oh, I'm so lonely. What you really want is the Lord. Oh, I'm so frightened. I don't have enough money. What you really want is the Lord. oh, I can't stand the politics, blah, 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 blah. God's in charge, turning everything. Give up all personal struggle. We turn our will and our lives over to the care of God. Even a God I don't understand. Because as the cloud of unknowing says in the end, it's beyond all concepts. Whatever you think you know about God, that isn't it. Now, for those of us who are attracted to the path of devotion, my opinion, the greatest text on that is Narada Bhakti Sutra. I've taught it once since I retired in 2014. Might do it again. Who here took Narada Bhakti Sutra? I can't
Me.
see. You did? Great, great text. In the end, what he calls Parama Prema, the supreme expression of love, is the same as Atma Brahmana. The mind can retire into the sun. So this is the highest form of worship. Kena Upanishad, I think it is, has this refrain, it's not that which you worship here. So when the mind becomes sattvic enough, pure enough, personal sense of self, and the personal God disappear. Only reality remains. Don't try to figure that out. Go there. And Bhakti Yoga is an absolutely valid path. Traditional Christianity is in essence a Bhakti Yoga. It's the path of love. Path of love. And for many of us, it's incredibly important. We find a wonderful expression of it in, of all places, the Yoga Sutras, which is Raja Yoga. So in the second chapter, the first sutra, Tapas Swadhyayeshwara Pranidhana Kriya Yoga. Tapas, austerity. Swadhyaya. Patanjali doesn't use the term the way Shankara does. Shankara says our own study of the scripture literally just means self-study. What Patanjali means is our own capacity to inventory our psychology, to know our kleshas, that's the term they use, our afflictions, but also our character strengths. The tapas is learning how to turn the mind into more productive modes of thinking and acting. And if you're like most of us, you'll find on your own unaided will, you're not very good at it. So one of my favorite sayings of St. Paul, I think it comes from his letter to the Romans. I do not do that which I would do. And I do that which I hate. Therefore, it is not I that do it, but sin that is lodged in my limbs. How many of us have had that expression? We set a goal. I'm going to meditate every day for an hour. We don't do it. I'm going to change my diet. I'm going to give up sugar and flour. We don't do it. I'm going to get up every morning. 5. I'm going to give up gossip. We don't do it. I'm just not going to engage in regret for that relationship. Can't let it go. Does this sound familiar to anybody? And then I do that which I hate. There I am, hitting the chocolate again. There I am with the ice cream again. There I am on Tender or Grinder again. There I am saying unkind things to the people I care about. And we can't stop ourselves. Does this sound familiar to anybody? Yeah. St. Paul talked about it 2,000 years ago. And what he said, therefore it is sin that is lodged in my limbs. What we would call that is papa, or our own vasanas, our own sanskaras. This force of the past, which is so powerful. So what does Patanjali say? Ishvara pranidhana. Trustful surrender to God. I can't, God can, I think I'll let it. How do I do this? You start by just saying the words. Listen very, very carefully. Prayer does not change God. Prayer changes the one who's praying. Prayer works. One of the oldest names of God in Hinduism is Surya. What Surya mean? The sun. Vedic ancient rishis would worship the sun. It's life-giving. But one of the qualities of the sun shines on the just and the unjust, the virtuous and the vicious, the good and the bad. There's nothing you or I can do to make the sun change its dharma. It just shines. But you and I can get depressed, stay inside, pull all the curtains. You and I can go outside with a hoodie over our heads all tied up. Sun's still shining, but I have the capacity to block off my enjoyment of the sunlight. So also, you and I can block ourselves off from the sunlight of grace, the sunlight of the beneficence of the Divine Mother, Mother Shakti. Shakti means divine energy. And when we surrender and open to that. We have Shakti Pat. Pat means, Padati means to fly or to fall. Shakti gets inside of us and changes us from the inside. I can't remember who said this. I think it might be Saint Augustine. Let me see if I can remember the phrase. Receive what you are and become what you receive. Something they say at communion in the Catholic Church. So the priest is giving you communion. Receive what you are. Become what you receive. Is that how it goes, Mike? And the whole idea is this wafer and the wine, which has become the substance and the essence of Jesus. As a mystic, I would say what happens is we reveal what's really always there. Something can't become the infinite. We can only reveal what we can't see. But it gets inside of us. And Eucharistic theology is it transforms us. It changes us. And surrendering to God does the same thing. Open your heart and your mind to the infinite. So the best of all prayers is the prayer of surrender. In the Vedic rituals, in a yajna or a puja, you have oblation that you offer to the god. Or if you're doing homa, there's the sacred fire, you do oblation. The ghee and stuff goes into the fire. Oblation. Take all your troubles, your sorrows, your fear, your anger, your self-pity, and give it to God. Not just once. My Creator, I am willing for you to have all of me, good and bad. So I'll give to you. This is the essence of Bhakti. Any thoughts on this practice?
Jill, I have a question on this.
Yes, ma'am.
How do you know when you're not using that to justify some form of laziness or fear of living life? So I'll give you an example. Let's say, for example, you wanted to get a new job. And instead of applying for jobs online, you say, well, I'll just submit to God's will and let God give me a new job whenever the time is right. And let's assume you've already reached neutrality on this job. So it's not like you hate your current job. You're kind of like waiting for the universe to do something for you. Like, how do you know, like, when you're just kind of using that as an excuse to not move forward with your life?
Excellent question. So there's a Sufi phrase that I love: trust God, but tether your camel.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this fellow Saint Augustine, I love Saint Augustine. He's a pretty gnarly dude.
Mm-hmm.
He used to say, pray like it all depends on God, but work like it all depends on you.
Mm.
Or I had a very dear friend named Joe from Rhode Island. He had a very thick accent. He used to say, God doesn't do windows. You gotta wash it yourself. So we have a part We cooperate with grace. Now, as we surrender to the infinite and that Shakti moves through us, the Divine Mother, it ideally impels us into right action. It's not armchair grace. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying.
So if you've done the prayer of surrender and you've turned it all over to God and you ask, where do you want me? Then when you come out of your prayer, your meditation, you just do the footwork. You shop your CV around, your resume, you make your contacts, and then you turn over the results. You leave it to God, which is very different than saying, I'm going to make this happen. But we do have a part. We pray, but we move our feet.
What if you don't know where you're going, though?
You ask for guidance.
Okay, that's fair.
And you do the next right thing right in front of you. I have news for you, sweetheart. None of us know where we're going. Not one of us. Some of us have the illusion of a life plan. But it's just that. If you want to know if God has a sense of humor, make a plan. But we just do our best. And as we get a bit older, you're still a very young woman. When I was your age and I was first introduced to the idea of a labyrinth, I just didn't get it. I mean, what's the point of walking around in a funny looking maze? You know, I used to work up at Grace Cathedral, and they had a replica of the very famous labyrinth from Chartres. It's there in the entry point. But as I've gotten older, it makes perfect sense to me. So what is the difference between a labyrinth and a maze? Do you know?
Yes, I've actually walked my labyrinth. The labyrinth is the same way in and the same way out.
You can't get lost in the labyrinth. You can in a maze. You read Harry Potter, they can get lost. Those are mazes. But what's interesting, you enter a labyrinth, and it's very cool to walk a labyrinth with a friend, and you start several minutes apart. Because what you're going to find, there'll be times when you're going this way and your friend's going that way. And they may start right behind you, but all of a sudden you find you're clear on the other side of the labyrinth. Oh, it looks like, wait a minute, they're going the wrong way, or I'm going the wrong way. But what you do is just keep moving forward. And inevitably you come to the center. That's the beauty of it. That's the mystical meaning of it. So your life is like a labyrinth with all its circuitous twists and turns, but you are inevitably coming home to God. I promise you that. Does anyone else have anything to add on this topic? It's really important. And you hear, in pop psychology today, trust the process. Well, there's an enormous amount of truth to that. Trust the process of life. But, big but, we have to let go of our set idea, what's going to make us happy, where we're supposed to be, what it's all about. You may have a relationship. Oh, this is it, my life partner. I've got it all together. And then something terrible happens. a death, terrible illness, or you break up. You may spend decades building a nest egg. I have a very dear friend who did that. Got a little bit overextended in real estate. Then 2008 and 9 happened. He goes bankrupt and loses $300,000 of personal wealth. Man proposes, God disposes. But every event is material for us to work with. And the practice is always the same. Detach, keep your heart open. Then step forward, do this next right thing. Is that useful?
Yes, very, thank you, Jim.
No, it's a great, great doubt. Anybody else have anything they want to add to that?
So Bhakti Yoga then doesn't, it exists alongside karmic yoga, for example. And it feels to me like what you're saying, what you said before, is that you need to practice both. But you're also saying that these different schools can apply to you don't need to.
You are not required to do Bhakti Yoga. You are not required to do Karma Yoga. You do what you're intuitively led to do. But the thing to understand is all of the paths end in one process. And that is, who am I? What's my essential nature? I like to talk about it this way. We have the mountain of truth. And there are many paths up that mountain. Many, many of them. On the top of the mountain is the temple of truth. And the temple of truth has one door. Aham, I. Now, what's interesting, those of us who come from a Christian background, if you look at the I am statements that you find in the Gospel of John, and you just tweak it a little bit, all of a sudden, meaning pops out. So Jesus said, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes unto the Father except by me. But he was in a full state of yoga when he said that, just like Krishna is in Gita. So let's play with the pronoun. I is the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to God except through I. All of a sudden, whole different meaning. Because when Jesus talked about himself, he was talking about the self. I and the Father are one. Guess what? The I in you and the Father is one. And all of those you can play with them. And they're the highest Vedanta if you understand that he was in a full state of yoga. All right, any other thoughts, questions, comments? Next verse.
सर्वकर्माण्यपि सदा कुर्वाणो मध्यपाश्रय मत्प्रसादादवाप्नोति Shashvatam padam avyayam. Doing all actions, always taking refuge in me. By my grace, he obtains the eternal, the indestructible state or abode.
Yes. By God's grace. So surrendering all actions to the infinite. Again, in the Christian mystical tradition, there's a wonderful little short book written by a fellow named Brother Lawrence, and it's called The Practice of the Presence. Are you familiar with this, Mike?
No.
Wonderful book. And his whole practice is, if the master were next to me, how would I be behaving? How would I be thinking? How would I be feeling? Well, I have news for you, Master. God is right next to you. For him, it was Jesus. But for you, it could be whatever you want. It couldn't be Swamiji, be Ramana Maharshi, it could be Ananda Ma. It could be Krishna, the Devi. She were right next to you all the time. How would you act? How would you behave? Wonderful practice. Practice the presence by Brother Lawrence. In the simplest activities become sanctified. Beautiful, beautiful practice. Now, grace, kripa. Is that the word he used?
Sorry, the pages are stuck.
I wasn't listening real carefully. I'm sorry.
Sarva karmanyapi sada kurvanu madvaya pashraya matprasada.
Prasada.
Prasad,
Yeah, the gift of it. But kripa, prasad, the gift of the God. What is grace? Grace, we usually think of as some benefit, some blessing that's unearned. You can't please God. We get this teaching both in the East and the West. If you do this, it's going to make God happy and God will like you. God's not neurotic. The love of God is a constant. And what comes to us ultimately is our own prarabdha karma, the karma of this body, the karma of this life. So we say, oh, by God's grace, the Guru shows up. Well, actually, it's the result of lifetimes of intelligent living. Your mind is sattvic enough that you can see the Guru finally. There's a maxim in Zen Buddhism that I love. Enlightenment happens by accident. Zen makes you accident prone. So we invoke grace through our own abhyasa, our own practice. Now, why is it that somebody may do sadhana for a very short period of time And they are deeply rooted in the self, and it happens pretty quickly and pretty easily. Others of us, we work at it and struggle for decades. That's the great mystery of karma. Some of it, we just have to work our way through it. But keep on keeping on. Remember what Arjuna asked earlier. Krishna, what if I work real hard? What happens to a person if they don't get realized after doing yoga for their life? Anybody remember what the answer is?
You take it to your next life.
Yes. And then you're born into an environment where you can continue and you quickly, you're reunited with your knowledge. And it happens very easily and very quickly. So we take a fellow like Ramana Maharshi, 16 years of age, lies down on the floor, attains realization in a half an hour. Well, we don't know how slow he was in his prior life. You know, he may have worked for decades and gotten very close and didn't quite finish the job. Came back with very little dust, as the Buddha says. So I ask you, which is better, the first rose of the summer or the last? Each blooms according to its allotted time. And the corollary to this, you can't take the rosebud and start pulling off the petals to try to make it into a bloom. That only destroys. So all that you and I can do is do our best. Continue to practice. Strive hard for realization and do your duty. Live your life. And abhyasa vairagya cha, practice and renunciation. Those are the things that we need to focus on. What is vairagya? That desire, we don't achieve it overnight, to give up sangraha, attachment, to enjoyments gained through the senses, and any personal sense of self. 2 areas we work on. Let it go, let it go. Keep on loving God, keep on loving, keep on loving, keep on giving everything up, giving everything up. Now here's a little corollary to the path of Bhakti Yoga. Krishna says in Gita, I agree with him, self-realization is not difficult. Krishna says easy to perform, yet it's very rare. Why? The major reason it's rare is nobody really wants it. Our egos say, yes, I would like self-realization along with my worldly desires. We have to give up the attachment. But what we're attached to is loaded with misery anyway. It's not like we're losing a whole lot.
Jim, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
It's more like I'd like you to comment more on this. I think that what you were saying that, nobody wants it, or nobody wants to pay the price tag. But it's not really difficult if you do. But I find that even if someone wants to pay the price tag, it is difficult in the sense that the mind goes back to the old state, right?
That's correct. That is correct.
It's as though that, moment by moment, you should be able to sort of give it all up, and that is what seems difficult.
And why does the mind return to the old state? Because I forget what the scriptures say. I have lost faith. So when Shankara has this important section in Viveka Chudamani called the qualifications of a fit student, in the kind of precursor section to that, he says, who can argue for the scriptures and refute arguments against them. This doesn't mean that we're going to a spiritual debating club. Where does that argument take place? Inside our minds. So when the mind tells me, yes, but I've got to worry about this, that, and the other thing. I really need this. That's what's going to make me happy. I'm so attached to this happening, and I know that that's the better good. That's justice. That's what safety or security is. No, what do the scriptures say, Jim? Scriptures say, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. Brahman alone is real, the phenomenal world is illusory. Mandukya says, Pratibimba, it's all like reflections in a mirror. So you argue with your mind. That's where the argument takes place. And you say, no, Jim, go back. Abhyasa Vairagya. Practice, meditate, meditate, meditate. Draw my fascination from the world of the senses. Let it go, let it go. Yeah, but what about bring back? And it's manual labor, Shweta. We have to do this over and over again. And we forget, but when you remember, keep working at it. That's all I can say.
Okay, thank you, Jim.
Now, we don't need to do anything to achieve enlightenment, self-realization. What we need to do is get rid of what encrusts the mind. The example I like to use, I like to watch these history things on the television. Any of you know about the galleon, the Atocha, that they discovered? I guess it's been about 20, 25 years ago now. It was a Spanish galleon with treasure in it. One of the biggest treasure ships ever discovered. And I was watching on the TV, and they had the baskets, and they were bringing this thing up, and there was this object. I didn't know what it was. It was just all lumpy, completely encrusted with barnacles. So they have these chemical baths that they put them in, which dissolve the barnacles. And after all the barnacles fell off, a solid gold Spanish crucifix, or stolen from the Peruvians, with precious gems inlaid. So you didn't need to add value to this beautiful object. All you needed to do was remove the incrustation. What are the incrustations? They're my vasanas. Vasana is an impression left in the unconscious as the result of my previous dancing with the object of the senses in an egoistic way. And Vasana has two powers. Who can remember? What are the two powers of a Vasana?
Shekha and Avarana.
And which one comes first?
Avarana.
Yes. Avarana Shakti, veiling power. When the mind is covered by Vasana, I have the non-apprehension of my essential nature. Then comes Vikshepa Shakti, projecting power or agitating power. I think I'm a person. I think the world of name and form is separate from me. And happiness means I need to play whack-a-mole with the world or improve myself. And the third item, Kartavya, struggling. I'll be happy when, it'll be better if. That's what we need to deal with. Ego always says resolve the struggle of ego. More, better, different, more, better, different, more, better, different. Yoga says drop the struggle, drop the struggler. Over and over. Then do as you will. Knowing that you're prarabdha, the force of your own past will impel your equipment into action. All right, next verse,
Jim, can I share something?
please.
So, like what Shweta said about how there is a forgetting, and then we go back to the old state, and then we come to a class and we remember it. I used to be someone who would loop thoughts, and then I used to think that there is no escaping that looping. But then, having come to a class like this for the past 4.5 years, I think satsang helps. It's just like when you're consistently listening to corrective dialogue, then your inner dialogue starts absorbing it by osmosis. And then the inner dialogue also, like at least in my case, it has changed. And I find myself
Yes.
borrowing from our class,
Shravana, Manana, Nidhyasana. Those are the classic three. You hear the scriptures and you think about it. And you do your best to meditate, contemplate, apply it. You got it. And it is through contact with the tradition, with the halls of Vedanta. This is a gestalt. It's not just the teacher. It's the teacher, it's the open and eager student, and it's as we have the setu, the bridge of the scripture, all works together. It's very magical. Very magical. But you're right. Now, those of us who've studied Tripura Rahasya, the very first story of Hemaleka and Hemachyuta deals with this doubt. What is the root cause of liberation?
Satsang.
You
Satsang.
got it. Sadhu Sangha. Association with the wise. Being in regular contact with someone who themselves is a full knower of the Supreme. And who keeps reminding you who you are. So that is the way we get out of the loop. Is that brainwashing, Jim? Yes, because you've got a dirty mind. Next verse. Oh, one more thing. There was this fellow Hamid, wonderful fellow. He was sitting right over there. One particular class, first time he got really tuned up. And he says, Jim, you hypnotized us. I said, no, I de-hypnotized you. You run around in the world fully hypnotized. All right, going on.
That's a good one. Chetasa sarvakarmani mayi samyasya matparaha buddhi yoga mupashritya majjittaha satatam bhava. Mentally renouncing all actions in me, having me as the highest goal, resorting to the yoga of discrimination. Ever fix your mind in me.
So now he's returning to this idea of deep essence of daily practice. So again, riffing on Shankara and his qualifications of a fit student. We've talked about Viveka, the first one, discrimination, Vairagya, the second one. The third one is called Shamadhi Guna, qualities of Shama, etc. Adi means first in a series. So the goal of the third qualification is to teach us how to, what Swamiji called, tune up the mind. So the first, Shama. Shama is keeping all the energy deeply introverted, tuned up, not letting it gush out, not letting your mind get triggered by either positive or negative sensory data. And he says, punar punaha. What's that mean?
Again and again.
Yeah. Over and over. Keep bringing the mind back. So like you can walk through the park and you see a leaf, a gum wrapper, dog poop, a flower. Keep your mind completely still without superimposing story and stuff. Shama, the next one is Dhamma. Dhamma is when I keep the mind intensely introverted, not letting it be pushed out by thoughts from the past. I'm sitting there meditating and all of a sudden, oh, there's a sale on pizza at Whole Foods. 40% off. Well, I can get 10 of them and they'll fit in the, next thing you know, you're off to Whole Foods. Shama, Dhamma, Uparati. Uparati means sense withdrawal. Those of us who studied Raja Yoga, it's the same as Pratyahara. So it's like when you're meditating, being able to withdraw the senses like a tortoise withdraws its head and limbs. But Shankara says the best uparati is when you're walking around in the world and the sense perceptions do not create vrittis. In other places, he'll say you want to have a mind like a wicker basket where you're pouring water into it. Just whoosh, everything goes through. Just let all the data, positive and negative, go through. Now, the problem is most of us are more than willing to renounce our triggered states by negative data. few of us are awake enough to renounce the positive things that come. So you're out on a date, and the man or the woman says, "Oh, you're so wonderful. I feel such a connection. I think this is going somewhere." What happens inside you? Oh, too late. Too late. You're already attached. Or at work, you're going to get an award this week. You highest level production. You're the best in the department. Not only that, we may not give you a raise, but we're going to give you a title. Isn't that what they do in business? You go, oh yes, oh yes. Too late. We're already attached. We have to let the good stuff pass through. If we attach and own the positive ego stroke, not if, when the world changes, it's too late, you're stuck. How can you say that to me? That's mean. Too late. So the practice of being empty is that upati. So these three, there's three more on this Samadhi guna. I'm not going to go into them tonight. The idea is keep this attention intensely in. So that's the first idea here. Let's go through the English of these practices again.
Mentally renouncing all actions in me.
Yeah. So who's the doer? Guna and karma, force of the past, qualities of mind, or Krishna is there, Ishwar is the doer. I am not the doer, I'm ever the witness. Next idea.
Having me as the highest goal.
All my worldly goals, I do my duty in the world. But what I really want is God consciousness, self-realization, the prayer of mystic union, the wedding with the beloved and the Sufis. That's what life is really about. Next idea.
Resorting to the yoga of discrimination.
Yes. So, Brahma Satyam Janimityete Rupa Vinishchayaha Soyam Nitya Anitya Vastu Viveka Samudarda. Brahman alone is real. Phenomenal world is illusion. Firm conviction in the intellect. Vinishchayaha. Brahman alone is real, and the phenomenal world is illusion. Is called Nitya, Anitya, Viveka. Discrimination between the real . I am not the body. I am not the prana. I am not the feelings. I am not the thoughts. I'm not even the ego. What am I? Chidakasha, space of awareness. What is this world? It's lila. It's just the play of consciousness. Don't get engaged with it. Be in the world, but not of it. Next idea.
Ever fix your mind in me.
Yes. The wonderful meditation given to us by Ramana Maharshi. Koham. Who am I? Whatever sensory experience, whatever feeling, whatever thought arises, to whom did this arise? To me. Who am I? Have this radical reversal of the attentive faculty. Find out, investigate. Who am I? What is my essential nature? Next idea.
That's it.
That's a pretty good place to start. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om.